Ms. Leduc, if you could get us a roll call.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Yes, sir. Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Fox? Mr. Williams?
Present.
Mr. Kendrick? Absent. Mr. Maffett? I believe he's on his way, but we'll mark him when he comes. Ms. Flatley? Mr. Myers? Absent. Mr. Nicely?
Present.
And Mr. Palavoda?
Present.
Okay. You do have a quorum, sir.
And Mr. Myers.
Oh, there's Mr. Myers. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for that. If we can now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, liberty, and justice for all. We bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to gather in this place, dear Lord. We ask that you watch over each and one of us, dear Lord. We ask that you bless our hearts and minds as we go about the county's business. Give us the clarity and the direction in which we need to go. Dear Lord, we ask that you give us patience, dear Lord. These and other blessings that we pray. Amen. All right. Okay. First is approval of the minutes from June 10th, 2025. I'm sorry. Before I go into that, let's look over the agenda. I'm going to make a few adjustments, and then I'll ask for any others. The recognition of our outstanding service of Mr. Christopher Parker. We're going to move that until August of next, which will be next month. And I'm also going to ask that we move the new business just before the public hearing. So that'll be after the citizens' public comment period. So we're going to move the new business, just before the public comment period. Yeah? All right. Are there any other amendments that need to be made to the agenda? Because we have 4. Okay. Seeing that there are none, with a show of hands, with the acceptance of the agenda as amended, with a show of hands for approval. Mr. Carter, you thinking about it? Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So it passes unanimously with the amendments. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. So there was approval. Yes. Okay. All right. So moving on. Now for the approval of the minutes of the June 10th, 2025 meeting. So take a moment to take a look at those.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I've got a quick comment.
Yes, sir.
I know several months ago I was the one who brought up the concern about the verbatim transcript of the meeting minutes and asked for something abbreviated to that. And now I would respectfully ask that we move that pendulum back just a little bit. We've abbreviated it so much, it's hard to get, for people that just want to read the overview of the meeting. It was really even hard for me to remember some of the information in there, and it would have been nice to have a little bit more detail. I don't know if we start using AI and a chat GPT to summarize the transcript or do something, but if we can take a look at moving it back just a little bit to provide a little more detail.
You mean in the action minutes package? Because the verbatim minutes are in the link.
Yes,
Okay,
in
so
the
something in
package.
between. Okay.
Something 3, 4, 5 pages, with just a little bit more detail. I don't need to go back to the 45-page verbatim transcript.
Let me ask you this, Kelly. Is there is the full verbatim, is that available upon request? Okay.
Yeah.
So,
There's a link to it at the bottom of the minutes,
yes.
action minutes page for
Okay.
everyone to see.
So where I'm going with that is, if I would say, and I don't hear any other counters, uh, keep it the abbreviated. I like the abbreviated, and if you need some clarity, request the verbatim.
Well, just some of the things are pretty simple, like we voted on this action. We don't even give the title of the action, and I have to go back and think back through and go dig through the details and go, what was that particular motion about? What's the summary of some of the public comments? Right? There was one of them where we said, oh, we had public comments and there were some for and some against. What was the summary of the issues that the public brought up? You know, is there a way we can give just a little more? Just think about it.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair enough. All right. Are there any other comments or recommendations on that matter? All right. Seeing that there are none, oh, yes, ma'am.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from June 10th, 2025.
All right. Motion's been made.
Second.
Pick one. All right. Motion's been made and seconded.
I can do a roll. Okay. Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Fox? Mr. Kendrick? Absent. Mr. Maffett? Ms. Flatley? Mr. Myers?
Abstention. I wasn't here.
Okay. Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
Mr. Palavoda?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you so much. All right. Next on the agenda is our citizen public comment period. So we ask that comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person, so that we can afford everyone an opportunity to speak. Now, if your comments are related to, we're going to say there's only one other item to speak on, and that's the height requirement. I'm going to ask that you keep those comments until that period is called upon. Okay? There will be a public hearing for that. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there is 2 public hearings. Yeah, yeah. So that we're going to ask that you keep those height requirement periods until that application comes before you. But any comments other than that, we ask that you come forth at this time. So I have nothing on the sign-up sheet for this period at this time. So the floor is now open for public comment. All right. Seeing that there are none. General. Is it general? Not pertaining, yes. Correct. General comments. Sure.
So yeah, I just want to confirm. I sent out an email. This a rather lengthy email. I just want to confirm.
Before you get started, sir, if we can have your name.
Oh, Marcel Viverberg.
And
Sorry.
if
Audi
you're
Group.
a resident of the county.
I run a business in the county,
Okay, and
right next to a proposed data center. And I did send all of you an email. It's, if we can confirm, everybody confirm that they received the email. So this is 3 minutes. Is nowhere near enough to explain everything. But I do have a question regarding notification. So May 14th, the applicant didn't notify anybody regarding anything. This time I got a notification a week ago, which is ridiculous. I mean, I can't, we have a daily life. So I'm under the impression that it's 20 days for adjacent landowners. Anybody I've asked, they don't seem to know. So is there an answer to that? Ms. Leduc, is there?
I'm sorry, sir. I was trying to connect to my computer.
Okay.
Were you asking about the notice requirements?
Yes.
Yep, they did notify via certified mail, and the requirement is 5 days prior to
5
the
days.
hearing.
When was that changed from 20?
I don't think it ever was 20.
It was 20. because and the prior zoning administrator told me it was 20
The
on a
state
different
code says-
item.
Yeah, state code is 5 days.
Okay, 5 days,
Mhm.
for sure. That's a ridiculously short
Mm-hmm.
time for anybody to come up with schedule changes, adequate results, adequate answers. But anyway, so it is 5 days. That's confirmed. So then I understand there's been some review and there's been a consultant hired, but all the while, nobody's asked us anything. Applicant hasn't come and see us, even though he told it, you all that he came and see us all. Untrue. How can anybody make an evaluation of this project of ridiculous size without even talking to the neighbors? Here's my neighbor. All my neighbors are in opposition, all adjacent. We met in my office last week. Again, it's ridiculously short timing on all this. I would like to have more time to come up with a more organized response to this application. 5 days is ridiculous. So that's the first thing I would ask. Second thing I would ask, I would like to talk to your consultant, if anybody was hired, to how can a consultant make any kind of adjustments or recommendations without talking to my neighbor, without talking to us? How can this thing just kind of waddle through the process? It's beyond me, honestly. So however that is, if I can get some type of an extension of this process so I can wrap my arms around how this works or how it's supposed to work, I would greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your comments. Are there any others for general comment period? Yes, sir.
I am Dario Cacciagliani, 4089 Kings Highway. I'm neighbor right across the street from the project. And I do have several concerns. One is on the creek that we share, with the properties that go towards mine. On several points, that creek, it's like a little snake. And over the probably hundreds of years, there's been an erosion. And 2 points is right close to, 1 point is right close to the house where I live and my family. Okay. When all this part will be paved and all this water will go to the creek, will create a tremendous amount of water. They will eat that part and make my house collapse. And other barns on the property too. And I wanted that to be thinking about and concerned, they went to my property and told me things about the things, and it was kind of, give me the wrong information and things that I can see, the view of the property, the bear that they're going to make it from where I am, I'm going to be able to see maybe 90% of the building, maybe more now that I know they raised the height. And, I think the gain for them is that this information, and they went there and told me things that was not accurate. Okay, it's a lot of different pollution, light pollution, noise pollution, view, and they was trying to tell me that, it's not. When I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I can see that thing is there, and they was almost telling me things inaccurate right on my face. And they was unrespectable to me when I went there. We was raising our voice to each other. I mean, they were raising the voice to me in my place. I don't know if it was intimidation or what, but I did not appreciate that. And I know they got way more money than at least me, but I'm not going to take it that. And I was thinking I don't see any neighbors that was right across for them. They agree with this. And I think there should be at least, I mean, more than 50% of the neighbors that are nearby to agree, but nobody's agree. And I wonder if you guys, any of you guys live across the street of that, how would you guys would vote on this? If your family, will be exposed to all this kind of noise and all that things.
Thank you, sir. All right. Are there any other for general comments outside of the project? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Pruitt. I am the owner of Finish Line Environmental. We are located in the King George Industrial Park. I have been watching this applicant go through the process here. And one thing that stands out to me is their willingness to listen and adapt and improve their proposal every time they come back. That to me demonstrates a willingness that they want to be a collaborative partner in this community. We're all familiar of some of the improvements that they have come back with recently, increasing the berm from 12 to 16 feet, enhancing the evergreen percentage in the landscaping package to 33%, not using groundwater for cooling, implementing monitoring sound. They want to be a good business partner here. They're investing in this community. From a business and economic standpoint, the tech center will provide King George County a long-term major revenue stream. They are providing the highest financial use of this land. We can't use this land and make any more money than what we're going to make from this. King George County has an obligation to support the schools. We have services to sustain, and we need to invest in the future. I strongly urge the Planning Commission to approve this application. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Mason. I'm a King George County resident. And while my property is not located adjacent to where this structure will be built, I'm a neighbor. And what I've heard over the last 5 times that I've gotten to stand before this board, going back a few years now, is that there seems to be a reluctance to move the county forward. While I understand the plight of no one wanting to see a building go up across the street from where they are, when they're used to seeing crop fields and things of that sort, there's some empathy that I have for you. I think the last time I spoke, I mentioned that where I live at now, when I bought my property 20 years ago, I had a nice, pristine forest line across the street from me that got clear cut. When I got here to King George County, there was no Walmart. There was one lane that came across the nice bridge, was only one lane. Things changed. I work for a company that builds these data centers in Northern Virginia, and I've got up here many times, and I've said that the buildings that we built in 2002 are not the same structures that go up now. I've sat in and I've seen people, I've seen various boards in the area, whether it's Stafford, whether it was Prince George's County, and everyone seems to be reluctant to moving the county, particularly this county, forward in any means other than a tobacco store. That's the only thing I see going up around here. I guess what I'm getting at is that You guys have the information in front of you. When I spoke here last time, I said, go and visit Stafford. Go and visit Loudon. Heck, go to Culpeper. They face some of the same challenges, some of the same farmland, some of the same things that are butting up against some of these proposed data centers, and see what their issues were and how they resolved them. I don't know if you went, but if you didn't go, you didn't do the service for us, because how can you make a decision? We need the money in the county. There are about 29,000 people in this county. That was just me doing a brief look. 180 some square miles in this county. And we're asking for a small portion in which you guys can control. Doesn't mean the data centers have to be all over King George County, but that's an industrial area. And while I sympathize with my neighbors, even though I don't live adjacent, I'm part of this county. And while I empathize with you having a business there, that's your business, but I'm paying the taxes here as well. And I know you pay taxes as well. And I'm not just pointing it out, but what I am saying is that the courage needs to be brought about. There's a lot of money that's been spent to make adjustments. You guys have the information. We shouldn't be continuing to go through this process.
Thank you, sir. All right. Seeing that, yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Burnley Taylor. I'm a citizen of the Madison District, and as you probably know, I'm a member of the land-owning entity that's involved with this project. I do have a personal interest, as you could surmise, but I'm also a taxpayer. For the last 20 years or more, I have paid a lot of attention to the county finances and proposed capital projects. I therefore know that our taxes will probably be increasing at a faster rate than any of us would like. Even with the efficiency efforts of the board and the staff, we have a challenging financial landscape in front of us. The Birchwood power plant is gone, and so is the $1 million it used to pay annually to the county. The dump will be down in 15 years. Waste management's $6.5 million a year in fees will be then gone. The county will then need to haul our trash somewhere else or develop our own landfill. At what cost? The high school is at or near capacity. Expanding will cost a lot of money. Building another high school will cost even more. We're going to need a new elementary school soon, I've been told. We need a new fire station at Dahlgren. A new water system, and this one scares me. Our aquifer is being depleted. So just like Caroline County, King George is under the state directive to get off the aquifer and onto surface water. That means either a pipe into the Rappahannock, a reservoir or two, or some combination thereof. Also, a new water treatment plant designed to treat surface water would need to be constructed. Caroline's cost for their project is $200 million. What's our cost going to be? Just the ever-inflating cost of doing regular county business is a challenge. In year 2020, the county budget was $85 million. It's now $133 million. It's a 56% increase in just 5 years. What will our budget be next year or 5 years from now? Even if we never add another resident, most of these challenges will remain. We need to plan for these challenges. We need to plan for now, and we need to plan for 30 years from now. The county comprehensive plan is a testament to that need for thinking ahead. This project is entirely within the comprehensive plan's set aside for business development, and this set aside has been in place for decades. The time has come. At a conservative $18 million a year at build-out, this project's payments will be 3 times larger than that which we receive from the landfill today. This project will lower the financial pressure on all of us, including farmers and other landowners, who might otherwise choose to divide up their properties for housing lots in order to pay property taxes. We also need to welcome projects that offer good, stable jobs to our community. Simply put, we need to take advantage of opportunities like this one and keep King George a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir.
Good evening. My name is Larry Emery. I'm a King George County resident for 25 years. I am also a neighbor to the property that they're speaking of in the industrial park. I am not speaking in an official capacity as an EDA board member of King George. Um, they have been out several times to meet with us about some of the different things in the area, the streams and all of the property in the areas, and they definitely seem to be willing to help in any way that they can and change as much as they can. I know that the data center thing has a lot of emotions on both sides. People are really either for it or against it. Part of the problem is that King George County's past decisions and financial has not helped in any way. If we don't start getting more help for the schools and getting VOTEC programs, we have a horrible time hiring people. And we like to hire people from King George. We have several high school kids that come to work for us and have been learning. But there's no skill there. And if we don't keep developing that with King George County, I think it's going to get worse and worse. They've made every changes I think that's been asked of them, all of the studies and research. So it's definitely a financial windfall for King George County. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. All right, seeing that there are no others coming forth for comment period, the citizen public comment period is now closed. All right. Floor is open for discussion from the planning commission, if there's any to be discussed. All right. Seeing that there are none, the comment period for the committee is now closed. All right. Next on the agenda again is the amended portion where we're going to be. Well, let me say this. It was supposed to be Mr. Adam Lynch, but he's out on baby leave with a new baby. So, Mr. Lynch, congratulations if you're watching, and I hope you're getting some rest. All right. Next is the amended portion, which is we're going to move the presentation for application Z-2025-00263, Bertheville Monopole Cell Tower Special Exception.
Good evening, members of the commission. I am Tracy Themack. I'm the agent for Telecom Capital Group, who is the infrastructure provider for this application. I'm going to take you through a brief PowerPoint. Also here with me is the managing member of TCG, Mr. Mark Fisher. He will be available to answer any questions you have. But I'll take you through these 8 slides, and then we also have, as you can see in your packet, the photo simulations that were done and completed as part of the balloon fly process, as well as the zoning drawings that have the more specific design details. So we can go through the salient sheets of those to give you a better sense of location and compound design. But if you could go to the next slide. The reason we're here is need. The lead carrier on this site will be Verizon Wireless. So the demonstration of need in the area is driven by their need for coverage and capacity relief. This slide takes you through the fact that the existing infrastructure, both in King George County and in many jurisdictions, is unable to support the ever-increasing demand for both voice and data services. Every time we move to a new G, 4G, 5G, the demand on every macro site, which are the large towers you see in this county and others, increases. And so there does become the need for additional macro sites in addition to small cell solutions, which can cover the shorter distances in between those macro sites. As you can see, 40% of homes are now wireless only. 10 years ago, that was at 0%. You could go to the next slide. So one of the macro sites, such as the monopole that is proposed here, would be required to provide 1G coverage and could provide that and propagate out about 7 miles. If you could move to the next. 2G coverage only reaches about 5 miles. Next. 3G coverage, also about 3 miles. And today, for 4G coverage and the impending 5G coverage, it is only propagating about 1.5 miles or less. So this is the reason that we need to have more of these towers to hand off and work in conjunction with each other so that signals are transmitted, data is offloaded from the sites that are over capacity, and calls can be transferred from site to site. If you could go to the next slide. Towers like this also help the wireless devices that we now are seeing increased in our homes. The tower can connect to the window device, and then we have, and every carrier has a different version of this, but it's helpful to bring the high-speed Wi-Fi into our homes, but it still requires a macro site to be close enough so that the units can connect to that macro site. You can go to the next slide. So when Verizon contacts an infrastructure provider like TCG, they first look to see if there are existing structures in the area. This is a requirement of your code, as it is a requirement of many county codes. It is always cheaper for a wireless carrier to co-locate on an existing structure than work with an infrastructure provider to construct a new tower. TCG doesn't want to be here if they're not going to have carriers as tenants because it just isn't a cost-effective solution. So they looked, and the existing towers in the site are both SBA structures. They are located 1.9 and 1.65 miles from the center of TCG's search ring. That search ring is also developed using Verizon's propagation maps to see where the coverage is most efficient. If you go to the next slide. This shows the existing coverage in this particular area of the county with all nearby existing structures online. You'll see 3 different colors there, really 4, including the white where there's no coverage. The red is the worst coverage, it's patchy coverage, dropped calls. Yellow is outdoor coverage, in-car coverage, and green is in-building coverage, which is the coverage you really want to see. You want to be able to make calls from your home, from your office. The blue circle shows the area that we are looking at to provide improvement to. And so TCG goes out and contacts landlords as close to the center of that search ring as they can. There are a number of factors that go into finding a parcel that will work. Size of the parcel so that we can meet setbacks, a willing landlord, terrain issues, topography. Different things go into figuring out exactly what height is needed to propagate and how far the signal will reach. The lower we have terrain-wise and topography-wise, the taller the tower is needed. So we're looking not to be too low so that we don't have to have an extremely tall tower. If you go to the next slide. Once this tower is up, it is proposed at 175 feet with a 4-foot lightning rod, so an overall height of 179. Verizon will be located at the center line of 170 feet. There will be space here for 2 additional future co-locators and the reason for that is exactly the reasoning behind your code requirement that we offer space for at least 3 providers so that we can avoid things that we call the pincushion effect, so that every carrier doesn't come in and propose a new tower at a reduced height. They're at the top, which gets them over the trees and accounts for the terrain, but then everybody has to come in and put one up. There's a required separation to avoid interference between the carriers. So we're looking at carriers at 160, 150, 160, and then Verizon at 170. Each array is about 10 feet. So the top of the antennas for Verizon will be at 175 feet with the additional height of 4 feet for the lightning rod. When Verizon is installed, this map shows the proposed coverage. So you can see most of the areas that were once red, orange, or white will be filled in with green, which is that in-building coverage that is sought. It will work closely with the surrounding sites in the area that are also showing green and propagation. So this will allow those towers to offload the data and voice demands on them to this tower, as well as provide coverage for those in the immediate vicinity. It should be noted that this isn't just customer-based complaints that are driving Verizon to install a tower here. A big part of the network is devoted to emergency 911. We're seeing more E911 calls than ever before. And in fact, the Federal Communications Commission has requirements now for each carrier that E911 be able, or that 911 providers be able to locate, that carriers be able to provide 911 emergency personnel with the location that calls are being made for. So if a call is made and they can't talk to the person and it's from a cell phone, wireless carriers need a certain percentage of calls to be able to be located geographically. These towers help them achieve that. So that if the person is in distress, they can still locate them without being able to talk to them. So that's actually now a federally mandated requirement. So Verizon is looking at being able to meet that in this area of the county as well, because that is, it is one of the top goals. If you could go to the next slide. Here you can see those other areas of green, which are the existing towers in the area and the relative distances. And you have to keep in mind, again, that Verizon is currently providing 4G. So we're looking at a propagation distance of about 1.5 miles. So you will still see some gaps, but the green areas are getting closer together, which is the goal. You can go to the next slide. I think that might be it. Is it possible to bring up the zoning drawings from the commission's packet? What they're scrolling through now, you've seen, is the RF report that takes you through a really thorough analysis of the need. There we go. Thank you so much. If you go down to the site plan, I think that's the best one to look at. Should be. Yes, right there. That's perfect. So here you can see the parcel on which TCG is proposing the site. It's a little over 2.5 acres located in the A2 district. There is a chart at the bottom of this sheet of the drawings that shows the setbacks. And in this particular case, both the monopole and the facility meet all of the required setbacks, including that from roads, off-site residences, and the property boundaries. If you scroll down maybe one or two more, I would like you to show you the elevation of the tower. One more down. There we go. Nope, let's see. Yep, one more. Should see a elevation side view of the tower. There we go. And this is what I was referring to earlier. This is the height of the tower. You can see that Verizon is proposed at the top center line of 170 feet, and then there will be space for 2 future co-locators at 160 and 150. I believe that the equipment compound also, which you could have seen on the site plan, is about 3,500 square feet. That accommodates the equipment, the ancillary equipment to the tower, and has space in it for any co-locators that choose to install after construction. Really, I'm happy to take any specific questions you have, and we appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. I open the floor for the planning commission for any questions. I think Mr. Lively here is probably chomping at the bit. So
Yeah, unfortunately, you've stumbled right into my field of work with RF. So I've got just a few quick questions, and I won't take everybody's time to go down into the dirt, and we could take that offline. But I've got a couple kind of ordinance related questions more specifically. I noticed in one of our standards here that it talks about considering local access to the towers. And have you contacted the county to see what facilities and what support you can provide to the county and its telecommunications infrastructure?
We have not. We do understand, and we've agreed to, if the county needs any space on this tower, that is, and we're happy to have that be a condition of approval, that they would have the right of first refusal.
Yeah, I just encourage you to go ahead and contact our emergency services to
Mhm.
see if there's anything that they would like to
We
see
can
added.
certainly do that before the board hearing. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. The other one that I have is, I noticed in the design structure, talks about the tower shall be designed to collapse fully within the lot lines. And I'm not a structural engineer, I'm an RF person. So can you please explain to me how a 175-foot tower on your drawings, it only shows an 80-foot collapse circle around it? Why do we
And-
not need to worry about that whole tower collapsing over and coming outside of your property boundaries?
Well, the property, it meets and let me ask Mark. Mark, is this designed to collapse onto itself? This structure, it's a slightly more expensive design to build, but this site, as are many of TCG's sites, is designed to collapse onto itself. So it actually, I believe, is going to be built in 3 different sections. So the tower is not designed to just fall over. It will collapse onto itself and the bottom section remains. So it's not a fall radius of 179 feet. It's a fall radius of the largest of those 3 sections. So it's got breakpoints designed into the tower.
Thank you. So there's some built-in fracture lines, for lack of a better, more
Exactly.
technical term.
Yes.
Okay. And then the last one is, can you explain, I know it says off-site residence. What is the house that's on the property used for?
I believe it's a residence.
I believe it's owned by the trustees of
Of the church?
the church.
St. Paul's Episcopal Church.
So is that their parsonage? No? It's a residence? Okay, that's fine. I was just curious. I had not noticed exactly the words about off-site. I was going to grill you about, wait a minute, the only one you show is the one what about the one that's
Right.
within 200 feet of your tower?
Um,
Approximately that residence, but it's on site, so it's
mhm.
nothing we can say about that. I'll take my other questions offline with you afterwards if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
thank you,
You
Mr.
can leave me a card if you don't want to stick for the whole meeting,
Will do.
and we can contact you.
Thank you, Mr. Lively. Any other questions from the committee?
You should got it.
So I understand there are no additional special exceptions required for this project? It's just
Special exception. There's no variances required.
variance is
Yes,
required, but
exactly.
one special
One
exception.
special exception.
Second, I just want to make an editorial comment to the staff of many localities build these towers on county land and drive revenue, which it's not your business, but that's something we really need to consider when we look at our laydown of county-owned property. It's a solid revenue generator and also an important community service.
If I can, you will notice in the statement of justification where we go through those code sections and requirements, I think there is a typo in there that says that we are providing space for 5 future co-locators. I think there was a previous application where that was the case. In order to reduce the height and better situate the compound so that we meet all of the setbacks, we had to reduce the height of the tower. So when we reduce the height, we reduce the available center lines and the spaces. So we're still meeting the requirement of the county of having 3 spaces, but I didn't want to think you were looking at 5 and then seeing 3 on the drawings. That's just a typo in the SOJ, and the drawings are accurate. I would also note that we did have a virtual community meeting, and we sent out notices about that. It was, I believe it was June 20th from 6 to 8:30. And I would have submitted a summary of the issues that were raised at that meeting, but nobody came. So I stayed on my computer the entire time, but nobody was there. So that's why you don't see a summary of any community comments previous to this hearing. Mr. Fisher also just let me know, as an additional mitigation technique, we are painting the tower brown and green as a blending mitigation, yeah.
Thank you. Are there any, Mr. Fox, any other questions? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Great, thank you so
Thank
much.
you. All right. Our committee comment period is now closed as well. Yeah. All right. Next is a public hearing period for application Z-2025-00260, resolution PC-14-25, Northern Neck Leasing Company rezoning. As the comment period be limited to 3 minutes per person to afford everyone an opportunity to speak once that comes up. Go ahead.
Okay,
Thank
thank you, sir. I'm just going to give a brief overview of the application and then turn it over to Daniel over here. Mr. Daniel Edwards, who's here tonight representing Northern Neck Leasing Company, has applied to rezone with proffers approximately 7 acres of land from C2 to industrial. The property is located at the intersection of State Road and James Madison Parkway and is currently used as a legally non-conforming transportation and freight service location. The use of the property is not proposed to change, and the applicant has voluntarily proffered out several industrial uses should this go through. The property lies within the Route 3-Route 301 settlement area as designated in the comprehensive plan. A major goal in this settlement area is to promote a diverse, healthy, and sustainable economy. The application was reviewed by all county and state reviewing agencies, and no one had any significant comments or concerns with this existing business. There were a few comments regarding possibly spot zoning this parcel as industrial, as it's immediately adjacent to other C2 parcels. The applicant is prepared to address this concern during his presentation. Resolution PC-14-25 along with draft motions are included in your packet, and I'll now turn it over to Mr. Edwards. Thank you.
All right, thank you. It's a pleasure to be up here again. Everyone had a nice 4th of July. And Kelly really summed it up. My client, Northern Neck Leasing Company, has been using this parcel as a transportation freight service since 1973. It's now being leased to a new tenant as of 2024, Equipment Corporation of America. They are currently under a special exemption to continue operating as a industrial use, a transportation freight service location. And that permit was attached to our application as Exhibit 2. ECA currently, or as of 2023, brought in $10 million in revenue to the county, and they will be a tenant of ours until 2023. We believe that retaining ECA as a client or as a tenant supports the King George Comprehensive Plan. And the comprehensive plan seeks to add additional industrial development in areas with established industrial use. And that's what we have at my client's parcel. What you see here today in both our conditions plan and in the zoning map behind you is as the site has existed since 1973. It existed this way in 1989 when the first zoning ordinance was enacted. It existed in this state in 2024 when ECA signed their lease, and we plan to continue it into perpetuity. We don't plan to build any new roads. We're on private water and sewer, and there's no increase in noise or traffic count that is anticipated. So at this point, I'll ask for any questions you may have after reviewing our application.
The floor is open for any questions or comments. That's a first, I believe. Okay. Sure. Thank you.
I had a question. In your application, you proffered out several uses
Yes, sir.
rather than just proffering in the use that you're using it as.
Correct.
Is there any way, if we're just using it as that use, why wouldn't we just proffer in that use only?
Well, we can certainly take that into consideration. I'd selected those just because, we viewed them as the most extensive uses that weren't transportation or logistics. I think warehousing is something that's very similar, that at this point we're not prepared to proffer out. But, electricity generating facilities, junkyards, recycling plants, resource extraction, heavy manufacturing, all those proffers are to convey that we intend to continue to use it as a transportation freight service. And that's how we formatted our application.
Okay. The public comment on this, on this application, Z-2025-00260, Resolution PC 1425, Northern Neck Leasing Company rezoning is now open. Going by my sign-in sheet, I have no one, so it is now open for the general public at this time. And again, this is on this application specific. All right. Sure. Yes, sir.
My name is David Bush. I'm a resident of King George. I live in the Shiloh Magisterial District. I'm a member of the church that owns the property right next door. And I don't have any feeling one way or another about changing the zoning. Just maybe an awareness more than anything else, because we own the property we haven't built yet. I'm one of the church leaders of Thrive Christian Fellowship. And we haven't built yet, but we intend to within the next couple of years. And just a little bit of a concern, but I already spoke with Daniel, and I'm fairly satisfied with what he's saying. Just concerned about the proffers later on. What's going to happen 10, 20, 30 years from now, long after I'm gone, but the church will still be there. Just when they're right next door and it's industrial, just maybe an awareness or a concern of the planning commission. I don't even know when I think about the proffers and all the other things that he mentioned about what it could be used for. A little bit of a concern there. Sunday worship service, lots of noise. I know there's an ordinance of no more than 60 decibels, I believe. I looked that up. I think that's correct, which is okay. I'm just concerned about the activity. We might have children running around outside the church, near that area. So it's more just information that I'm giving the planning committee that we will be building a church next door. So I'm not even sure whether there'll be a problem. So I'm not for or against changing the rezoning. Just wanted to make you aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any others? All right, public comment for this application is now closed. I think we're good. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
And we spoke outside prior to this, but I just want to bring it to your attention that ECA is to my understanding, a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 business. They're not operating on Sundays. And as far as noise, the property as it has been used for the last 52 years has not received a noise complaint on file. And again, it's not being used on Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And apologies, but before I leave, if the Planning Commission has all the information it believes it needs at this time, I would move for a vote to make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you again. All right. Okay. So we've heard comments. We've had public comment period. We've heard from Daniel. Floor has been opened and closed for comments from us. We've heard Daniel's plea. If I'm looking for a motion at this time.
And can I just ask a question real quick? I'm trying to look through our ordinances. Where are the table that shows what the industrial uses are?
It's in the use matrix, section. Kenny, if you get it before me, tell her. Are you on Muni code? Yeah. Are you looking on Muni code or in the PDF? You're on Muni code? Okay. Give me just a second. No, it's okay. Yeah.
Do you mind just calling out some of the potential uses? Potential future uses?
Yep, it's Division 3 use matrix.
Industrial. Yeah, but there's everything in here. All the by rights. You want me to read all the by right ones? Because everything else is special exemption.
How many are we looking at?
20, 5 maybe.
Ms. Lively, what is your
Radio towers, community facilities, educational, emergency management, public telecommunications facilities. Just talked about those. Brewery, crematorium, equipment sales, garden center, manufacturing, restaurant. I'm just doing the by rights. Tradesperson service, construction yard, heavy manufacturing, light manufacturing, small scale manufacturing, recycling facility, transportation and freight services, warehouse and distribution, and that's it.
What about the handling and storage of hazardous materials per se, hazmats?
That's listed in here as a special exception that they would have to come for hazardous materials.
Okay. Thank you.
I was checking on that one as well.
Was there something specific you were looking for?
I was trying to validate the concerns of anything that might be dangerous or noisy.
Some of the Ian's. Yeah.
Would it be unreasonable to ask that, I mean, there's already noise abatement in our ordinances. So I suppose that pretty much covers it if we rely on our ordinances.
Yeah, I think so.
Denise, did you want to see at all?
So,
yes, sir.
So I have no issue whatsoever with them doing what they're doing there, which are the 2 uses on that. But when this property, it's a non-conforming right now because it was an area that wasn't picked for industrial. So to open up industrial for other things, it's already there. I have no problem with it. It's already there, and them continuing to do it, even with different tenants and things like that. I have no issues with that. The decision we have to make is do we want to do that the way it is, or we want to do it with just select industrial things out? With select industrial things, you open it up to a bunch of other uses that are in industrial, or anything we decide later. Okay, industrial can be used for this, like when we added battery storage and things like that. You're opening it up to things that we don't even have in our ordinance right now. But if we add it later, then that piece is included with it, even though it's outside of an industrial area. So that's kind of the choice. To me, it's a no-brainer kind of to go back. They've been doing it for 50 years.
Right.
That's what's there. Of course, in my mind, of course we should let them do it. Adding things, I don't know if that's a good idea at this point without blocking off. Normally when we do that, we block off a large piece of land and say,
Correct.
This is an industrial area and we're going to allow industrial anywhere in there.
So what you're effectively saying is you'd be fine with it if everything was proffered out except for the intended uses.
Right. And there was transportation uses and storage. I believe you guys are probably storing stuff there if you're moving stuff back and forth. So obviously both uses would stay in.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the floor, sir.
I would just point out they're already zoned C2, which most of those things that you're saying that you want to have them to proffer out, they're already, they can do that now. So they're not, they're not really expanding the scope so much as you think.
All right.
Yeah, actually, C2 has even more by rights things that they could do.
Which is fine because it's a C2 area.
Do you know why you said it was not chosen for industrial? Is that something that you know more about?
No, that was before I was in when they did the industrial park and all that. But there are several places around the county that had industrial. We've downzoned some of them by the request of the landowners.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like I think we're ready for a motion. And so if I can get a motion from someone and second it. Sure.
I offer a motion to adopt resolution PC 14-25 to forward application Z025-2025-00260 to the King George County Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
So say it in the mic.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. Ms. LeDuc, if we can get a roll call.
Okay, yes, sir. Mr. Kendrick marked as absent. Mr. Myers? Mr. Palavoda?
Aye.
Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Maffett? Ms. Flatley? Mr. Fox? Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right. So motion for Northern Neck Leasing Company rezoning carries. Thank you, sir. All right. Next, we have an amendment to application Z-2024-00194, the Green Energy Venture Special Exception. So.
I can speak a little bit as to the kind of where we are. So public hearings were held on the Green Energy Ventures applications back in April. As you all know, where action was deferred due to the ordinance amendment that was required to allow for the taller buildings. So the Board of Supervisors passed that ordinance amendment in June, and shortly thereafter, the applicants requested a revision to their existing special exception permit to allow for building heights of greater than 50 feet. And that's the public hearing that's before you tonight. I believe they also have a brief presentation they'd like to give to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Hobie Mitchell. I'm managing member of Green Energy Ventures. Again, as Kelly had said, we're here only to discuss the height issue. And so we wanted to go through what changes we did since our last meeting. Again, this special exception is to allow you, the Board of Supervisors gave the ability to make a decision to have a height increase with special conditions, which we hope this addresses. Next slide, please. So one of the first things we did after talking to some landowners as well is that we increased the buffer height, the berm height from 12 feet to 16 feet. But we also increased the percentage of evergreens from the other deciduous trees or ornamentals. And what this purpose of this was, because during the winter, the deciduous trees, the leaves would fall, so you would see potentially the buildings in the background. So that's why we increased the percentages. We didn't increase the number of plants because it was hard to increase, which is already pretty heavily landscaped. But we also proffer to not only an enhanced type C buffer, but also to plant the material at a larger caliber on the first day. So the 5-year growth, you'll see a larger tree rather than have a smaller vegetation in the beginning. So we're proffering several $1 million of landscaping. And we talked to different vendors about some of this ranges from 2 inches to 5-inch caliber. Next slide. So the way your ordinance reads today is on the top. You're allowed a 35-foot tall building by right, and you have the setbacks in the ordinance that you see right here. This is the right of way, 50 feet, and then another 50 feet. You're allowed to go up to the 50-foot height with an additional 1-to-1 setback. And so this represents a 50-foot tall building with the increase of 15 feet for the buffer between this area and that area. So from across the street, we looked at different residences from across the street, not only at Bloomsbury Road, but also at Kings Highway. And so the visual image of that with the landscaping that's required under the ordinance, this is what you'll see at the top of the roof. I've also added some things in here about what a parapet might look like on top of the buildings, because the roof is measured by the ordinance to the top of the roof. Parapets are in addition to that. So what we did with our plan was not only did we increase the height of the berm, but also increase the density of the landscaping, but the height of the caliber of the landscaping with a greater setback. So at that same parameter with this house, you'll see the top of the building. You'll probably see a little bit of the parapet. And this is represented at a 5-year growth. In the back, you'll see 65 feet. We proffered to say that anything that is along Bloomsbury Road and or Kings Highway would have a maximum of 65-foot height. In the back of the center of the project, we had a maximum of 90 feet for a 3-tier building, which we have a fair amount of interest for doing that for a lot of reasons, for cost efficiency, for construction, but also for HVAC cooling. Next slide. This is some of the visual that you would see at 5-year growth. This is at the entrance of Kings Highway. Again, you can see that all these buildings located in front of the roads on Bloomsbury would be restricted to 65 feet. The only potential area would be behind these buildings. But this is represented visual of what it would look like from the road at 5 years from across the street from the entrance. Next slide. Here's another visual image about what that would look like from across the street at 5 years. You know, at 10 years, 15 years, you probably won't see these buildings, but we wanted to understand what it looked like at 5 years. Next slide. Here's a visual image also of Kings Highway while you're adjacent. This is going from eastbound to westbound. And so this is what you would see along the road frontage. We've also, in our package, did this, I'll call it the old split rail fence versus a 3-rail fence to give it more of a flavor. Next slide. This is the visual image on Bloomsbury Road with the landscaping plan. So this is what we proffer too. I think, any questions on the height issue? Be glad to answer anything.
The floor is now open to the Planning Commission for any questions, comments.
We had a comment from a resident here that lives across the street from on Bloomsbury with LaGrange. Did you generate any visuals for him about what his visual would look like? It's more difficult to structurally block, a 65-foot building from a house that's 200 feet away versus being right up close to the trees on the highway. I just wondered if you'd offered him any visual representations.
Actually, I did. I met with he and his wife at his house where his farm is. And in fact, we talked about that. And we talked about storm water. In fact, his daughter is a civil engineer. And I suggested that his daughter, we can have our engineer meet with his daughter since she understands that to explain some of the water surface runoff. But we did produce some images about what it would look like. There's actually, maybe we can go back a couple slides. I think we have a cross section. One more slide, maybe. We had a image of Bloomsbury Road. Frankly, Bloomsbury is pretty close to it's a little closer, but actually the closer you are to the road, the greater degree of you won't see the visual impact. The further away you are, the greater ability to see a building. So the closer you are, the less of the building you would probably see. So I think the one image, if you can go back 2 slides. One more. The other direction, sorry. One more. Keep going, sorry. One more. So as you can see, the closer you are with the landscaping, you see actually less of a building because of the angle of the building. And that's why we added something recently, a proffer that says that nothing along Bloomsbury Road could be greater than 65 feet in height.
All right. Any other questions from the Planning Commission? All right. Seeing that there are none, we'll close the period for comment from the Planning Commission. So Duke is now getting me the sign-up sheet for public comment period. Thank you. All right. So public comment on amendment to the application Z-2024-00194 Green Energy Ventures Special Exception is now open. I ask that you keep your comments limited to 3 minutes per person to afford everyone an opportunity to speak. I do have some names on the sign-up sheet. First I have Brent Hunzinger. Hunsinger? So yes, great question. This period is only for height. On what you just the presentation that you just heard. It's only for the height. Okay. At this time. Okay. All right, Mr. Mason, did you want to? Yeah. Let's see. We have Ann. I'm sorry, I just can't read that.
Good evening. I'm Arn Eliason.
Okay, very well, sir. Yes, sir.
ARN. Yeah.
Yes.
Madison District. I'm going to address a few issues. One of them is the euphemism Green Energy Ventures. That's a great name for a data center complex. I'm thinking, how does that compute? But putting that aside, I have some cautionary information, specifically about the height. It may be interesting for you to know that on 5 June of this year, the Loudoun County Planning Commission voted to block a key power plant amendment tied to 3 data center campuses in Leesburg, Virginia. And I've been up there and I've surfed the roads and I've seen the data center campuses. The clashes between data center growth and suburban quality of life. Demand for electricity up there jumped 230% in 5 years. Neighbors are fed up with power lines and power generators, the constant hum that they hear, and the diesel backup noise. And this is particularly pertinent to the idea of raising the buildings higher. If you want to be heard, you get up on a higher place to broadcast your noise. And if they're talking about using air cool, that generates even more noise than water cooling. That's a great concern to me as a neighbor of this area. I live across the street on Kings Highway, and it's very problematical for me. Having come to the county, seeing that certain land was agriculturally zoned and seeing all the beautiful farmland, and now having the camel has got its nose under the tent, and now they want to bring their whole body under the tent and cuddle up with me with a huge building. I find that very disturbing. I serve the information from the Loudoun County experience just as a cautionary tale for us in King George to take into consideration what all these amendments can do to change the whole nature of a project. And it's easy to come up with artist renditions that as you drive along Kings Highway or Bloomsbury, those, you have to remember, are artist renditions and may not actually reflect the truth. I have other comments, but I'll save that for another time as they are not directly pertinent to the height of the buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Ms. Nancy How you say your name, Ms. Nancy? Armour. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Armour, and I live in Westmoreland County. And I have our family home is in Woodbridge, Virginia, Prince William County. My career was in IT, specifically selling data center space to the federal government. And over the last few years, I've been actively involved with Prince William County in their adventures in the data center space. So I've been to many, many public hearings and have learned a lot along the way. So specific to the building height, one thing that caught my eye was it doesn't include anything that would be on the rooftop equipment. And I think that should be something that you would want to consider, as other gentleman has said, because quite often there's a significant amount of equipment that is put on the rooftop, whether that's the rooftop chillers, generators, air handlers, all sorts of different equipment could be put on the roof. The pictures that we see today don't have anything on the roof, and that's nice and it's lovely. But the approval at the building height that you have today, where it excludes all of that, would not necessarily be what those pictures would end up representing in real life. So just some ideas to think about. Thank you very much.
Very well. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Dario? Again, these comments are specifically for the height requirement.
Yes, my name is Dario Cacciavaliano. You guys already know me. But yeah, regarding the heights, that was one of the problems that we have that we discussed that we disagree. Because the angle, yes, from the house right across the street, they maybe not be able, they're gonna be able to see just a part of it. But if it put you're not going to be able to see half of your body. Okay? So that's what they disagree with me, and they try to tell me not. My house is farther down. Okay? And also on the top of the buildings, the machinery that they can put, they produce also noise, and the noise also going to be able to go through. If it was a barrier there, it's more able to defer the noise also. So it's the view, it's the noise, it's the light, it's a lot of pollution. And even the barrier that they're gonna do after they put the trees and all that, he told me they're gonna take 15 years to grow. Maybe the majority of the people that here will be dead by that time. My neighbors right across the street from the place, they're on the 80s. And, they're gonna be dead by that time that trees will grow. And I mean, they was telling me that I'm not gonna be able to see the building when I know for the fact that I am. And that was the thing that concerned more, that this information gain that they own it, I think is totally, unrespectable. And I mean, there was a little bit raising the voice and telling me, no, you're not going to be there. You're not going to be able to see it. And my wife, who was there in the meeting, she almost get in tears. She didn't want to come in today to the meeting because she was so offended the last time, and she don't want to go through that aggressivity and things like that again. Okay? That's all what I can say.
Thank you, sir. Marcel?
Marcel Viverberg, Horty Group USA. I feel a little left out because I don't have a berm. I don't have anything. On the back side, on my driveway side, I'm at a little bit of a loss. You used the same slides as you did before. So on my end, you said in the back, it's 90 feet plus equipment, so we're over 100. And are we supposed to just look at it? Or are you putting a berm up on that side as well? I'm curious. So 110 feet, including equipment. We have crops right next to it. These crops are going to grow in the shade. The noise, I made an extensive study and on how our crops are affected. Height, shade, noise, vibration, pollinators will die off. It is an absolute show to put this up at this spot, and to make things worse, to aggravate things, let's double the height on it to make it even more ridiculous. So I would recommend that this committee reject this idea wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That concludes all on the sign-up sheet. Are there any others? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name's Darren Colomb, and I am the house that is directly affected on Bloomsbury Road. The height is obnoxious. The noise will be obnoxious. The trees will not grow to height before I die. I'm totally against this. There's other reasons that include the fire truck and manning the fire truck and housing the fire truck that will support this increased height. The cost that goes into maintenance of the fire truck, the upkeep, the certifications. Shall I go on? No, probably not. Because I am directly affected and my neighbors don't seem to care about my impact. I'm taking offers on the property if anybody would like to make an offer. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Are there any others? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Southworth, and I'm a King George resident. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know what part I'm in. But anyway, so a lot of this is the quality of life versus money for King George County. While I am against data centers for all of the reasons that everybody has enumerated, I hate to see Air County go down that pipeline. I don't want to live in, big grown-up areas like Washington and that everything north from Stafford north. I like where we live. I'd love to preserve it. I understand the money aspect. However, I'd prefer not to have it. In building this building's taller, everybody's talking about the screening process. There are a lot of different things that you can use. Some trees do grow fast, but they don't last very long. So from an ecological standpoint, I would urge them to use fast-growing trees initially, but to have your oaks, pecan, walnut trees that are going to be nice and big and tall. And when I see up there the ornamentals, that just makes my blood run cold because they're foreign to Virginia, and that's going to just add more things that aren't native that grow crazy because nothing eats them. I would say please use Virginia native shrubs and evergreens and ground covers. Even Virginia pine trees are good for nature if the nature can put up with the noise. And hopefully what I've read, they're going to keep the decibels as low as they can and the berms will help. I wouldn't put things on the roof. I don't know if you can have them, just keep them down, anything that's noisy. Also lights, hopefully they won't put lights on the roof because of the pollinators and the migratory birds and things. I would have low lights and I would have them shielded from the sky so that we also don't have to put up with more light pollution in the whole area. The water runoff would be a problem because of the erosion through your property, and that sets up all kinds of other not natural issues downstream because you've got the erosion, then you've got the soil falling in, you've got you change the natural habitat of the area. So that really should be looked at. If they need water, why don't they make some kind of little pond and have it run in that and use that water before pulling it out of a river? There's always another way to look at it. So the rural habitat that I would love to preserve versus a sterile habitat that could be built, I would certainly urge them to use Virginia natives and good trees and things down the line if this should go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Are there any others? Seeing that there are none, the public comment period is now closed. I want to grant the applicant, if they wish, an opportunity to answer any questions or address anything.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. To your point, we do want to use native species. In fact, ornamentals such as dogwoods and redbuds, which are pretty native to Virginia, we like to use a lot of that. And we added the evergreens just because in the wintertime, leaves do fall, so we were trying to mitigate that. But we did meet with a lot of people, respectfully listen to people, and we can't satisfy everybody, but just a reminder, this has been planned as an industrial development for quite some time. In fact, there was a user that was going to come in here before, higher than the height that the data centers were limited to. But because of the visual impacts of a by right data center, we actually believe by this proposal that we actually mitigated a lot of the visual impacts. And we proffered to an acoustical level. The basis for the parapets on the top was really for acoustical treatment, not so much for the visual, because we are proffered to a noise level that's 60 daytime, 55 at night. So there's ways you can mitigate how you can treat those parapets to visually be better. But we proffer to a larger caliber tree. I don't know if you have 5-inch caliber trees, a couple $1,000s, but we plant that right up front. You can't plant them too big. I'd love to say we could spade truck bigger trees in, but they're not available. So that's why we're actually going out and shopping for landscaping suppliers to even find us, because it takes a long time to find this. But we really, I think, mitigated a lot of the visual impacts. We proffered to a pretty significant dBA level. In fact, just having a conversation, I got an app. This conversation actually we're having right now is higher than what we proffered to. So we really have to do that, and we increase that for noise levels. But I think we really did a great job for an industrial use like this compared to what could have happened on the site years ago, especially when there was a proposal for a food distribution facility with none of these things that we're proffering today. But we're glad to meet with certain people. I think I'm a big landscaping guy. I like to do it that way. Native species because they have better success for survival. And we appreciate all the comments related to that, and hopefully you'll move this forward. Thank you.
Sir, I do have a question, a point that was made out earlier in comment pertaining to rooftop equipment. Could you elaborate?
Well, you're going to have mechanical equipment on the roof, and the purpose, you have fans up there. So the purpose of the parapets would be for buffers to mitigate any sound and acoustic treatment that could happen from that equipment. But there's a lot of things you can do to mitigate noise levels from the top. It could be the fan speed, could be the angle of the fan. We'll have to evaluate that at the time of the engineering for the construction. But that's why you have an acoustical engineer that will evaluate that, because we're proffered to a noise level. And So the parapets on the top are specifically not just to hide equipment, but mostly for acoustical treatment because that's as important as anything else.
All right.
Do you have an estimate of how much additional height that mechanical equipment is going to extend above the roof line? I know we can't hold you to it, that's not in our definitions.
Well,
Just give us a
technology
general
change-
idea. We're
yeah.
talking 10 feet, 15 feet, you know, what?
I don't think it'll be higher than 12 feet. That's what our estimates are. There is equipment, you know, technology changes all the time. You can have some equipment that could be 3 to 4 feet, could be 12 feet, we estimate is what we think will be the height. But whatever it takes to mitigate any sound and acoustics, it will be. So if it's 15 feet, we don't want to have it any higher than we have to. We just want to comply with the noise ordinance and make sure you visually didn't see the equipment.
Thank you. Mr. Ian, I think, okay, very well. All right. Are there any other questions from Commission? All right. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, if there's no more discussion, or if there's other comments, you may do so at this time.
You need to close the public comment.
I'm sorry.
If you're ready.
Public hearing is now closed. So comments now from the Planning Commission.
So just in general, I've got general comments to the whole scope of the project. So I guess my question is, we have 3 other applications pertaining to this. This is, I believe, the 4th. So how do we want to handle all that prior to a vote, which I would assume is going to happen tonight?
I think we have to take this as a whole, because if you were to say you're for, one aspect of it, it definitely affects all the other aspects of it. So I think we need to talk about all of the issues collectively.
Exactly. Yeah, and I agree with that. Yeah. So, no, I want to. I think I want to hear the rest first, and then if we can.
Well, I mean, so if we're going to have discussions and comments within ourselves on the whole scope of the project, are we doing that right now?
No.
Or are we doing that later on?
I want to do that later on once we hear everything.
Because at this point, we are not expected to take a motion or a vote on this specific height exception. At this point, are we? Do we need to make a motion about this specific exception at this point, or do we do that later after we've had the overall discussion about the project?
So it's a little bit tricky because there's a specific order that the motions would need to come in. First, obviously, you'd want to approve the rezoning to even go forward. So the list of action items are the items that are deferred from the previous meeting, kind of in the order that y'all should discuss and take them up. Does that make sense?
Thank you. So we do not do this one first. We have our general discussions about the overall project, and we'll take them in that appropriate order.
Right. I know it's a little tricky, but yeah.
Okay. All right. So with that being said, next items are deferred from our previous meeting, which is first is resolution PC-05-25, application Z-2022-00021, Green Energy Ventures rezoning. And so there's nothing to be presented. It's just for discussion. Right? The floor is now open.
Yeah, I'm wrestling with this. We have other data center applications I've approved or pending. The Amazon is approved. They could build out tomorrow. We could approve this today. We'd have 2 hyperscale with unknown effects in terms of amplifications and noise and frequencies. My second concern is this is the gateway to King George. King George is the gateway to the Northern Neck. And 100-story buildings, to me, does not communicate respect for our agricultural heritage. Thirdly, the loss of agricultural industry is irreplaceable. Should we lose, I mean, we have the largest horticulture, the tulip farm in North America here, perhaps in the world. It's 300 jobs there. So, you know, net, are we better off? I support industrial activity at that location, but I would support it to be in support of agricultural activities. You know, giving a market, a warehouse, a seed store, you know, a cattle pen. No, seriously. I'm concerned about the creek and water management. I'm confident that we're engaged. I mean, I support this sort of thing, but I can't support it there. The loss of some of our finest agricultural land, the Taylor property, Burnley, it's a beautiful piece of property. You know, until we understand what's happening, you know, with the others, you know, maybe we want to consider capping the total square footage of data center or solar farm. We want to be the place where people come to get away from data centers. You know, that's King George. And finally, our air quality is why people want to come here. Our air quality is so good, we can pour a lot of filth into it and still be better than Northern Virginia. That's the reason to keep it what it is. So people want to come here for fresh air and visual, you know, regrounding. So I appreciate the applicant's efforts to accommodate our concerns, but I find it difficult to support at this time.
Mr. Chair?
You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. So I understand this is an area set aside for industrial zoning, and I'm okay with that given its location within the county. I'm also not fundamentally opposed to data centers, as you heard last month. However, I do not view this specific project as appropriate for this specific land. There's no public water, there is no gas line, there is no appropriate electrical infrastructure. Regarding electric, the site is part of Dominion, which means that citizens subsidize 55% estimated of the cost of electrical upgrades. I don't know how y'all feel, but I, for one, am tired of my personal electric bills subsidizing billion-dollar private projects around the state. Regarding water, there are 2 production wells plus a potential backup well will siphon 60 to 70,000 gallons of water a day. This is roughly the equivalent of 190 homes by estimates discussed during the last application period for this project. This is the last thing we should be approving in one fell swoop, given the current considerations and concerns with the aquifer in the county. So in consideration of this, could these parcels eventually be appropriate for data center usage? Perhaps, but they are not under today's conditions. Furthermore, we've had the owner of the adjacent property tell us during the last public hearing that in no uncertain terms, his business will be leaving the county if this project is approved. I'll point out that his business is the exact type of business we want here in order to preserve the agricultural nature of the county. So not only do we lose their tax revenue and jobs, but more importantly, what kind of signal does it send to future or existing business partners if we effectively say, well, thanks for being great neighbors for years, but you don't contribute enough financially, so we're going to go with these guys over here. To do that would be fundamentally wrong and dishonorable in my estimation. Lastly, when considering land usage, we also need to consider who will be the stewards of said land. As of now, I do not have confidence that this applicant is the proper steward for these parcels. I would ask all of you to think back to the last few meetings reviewing their application. How many times have we looked at each other up here with confused looks due to what was on paper not completely lining up with the answers we were being given to our faces as we started digging below the surface level? We also need to consider the comments from the direct neighbors regarding notification. During the previous public hearings on this application, we had not just one, not 2, but seemingly all neighbors here stating that they never received notification. That doesn't look like just an oops, that looks like a pattern. So again, I would ask if this is the type of partner we want in the county. So I cannot support this in this time.
Please, please, please. Thank you. Are there any other comments from Ms. Lively?
So you stated that very well. Thank you. I just wanted to say that making these decisions can be very difficult, and I've spoken to the applicant many times, and I see a lot of back and forth where he wanted to know what we wanted, and I found it a little disappointing that those conversations weren't being had with some of the people who also had a very vested interest in what was going in next door. I think that they have done a lot to mitigate what a data center is. However, when I go to making this decision, it's not the rezoning because the comp plan says industrial, but under our ordinances, we basically say data centers shouldn't be over the height for that zoning district. And then under the special exceptions, it basically states that the King George Planning Commission has made the following findings regarding this application. The proposed use is not prejudicial to the character of the neighborhood. The proposed use will not be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties or the general neighborhood, nor will it impair the value of the buildings or property in the surrounding areas. And since I can't support that document, I can't support the project. This is what we would be agreeing to.
I think Sean requested the floor next. Sean.
I'm not speaking for or against, but I just want to point out one thing that we should consider, and this is the property rights of the people. Obviously, if I lived there, I wouldn't want to see anything but a farm field. That would be great, but I promise you that they're going to find the highest and best use of that property. You might not want to see a data center there. You know, if I lived there, I'd probably rather it stay as a farm, but if we decline this, they'll find something else, you know, and things that you would look for. You know, we've mentioned that the landfill is going to run out very soon. This might be a great area for a landfill, or it could be some other use that we haven't even considered. So when I look at this as a whole, I think that the downside of it is not as bad as what it could be. You know, they might find some other use that would be very objectionable and get that through. I think that with proper planning, you know, they've mitigated most of the concerns. You know, I heard about erosion, and you know, there's extensive stormwater management. You can't build anything in this county without the stormwater management. There, you know, all the runoff water is going to go to lakes, they're not allowed to have a runoff on your property and erode it. It's just something to think about, and it reminds me of when we actually did the landfill. You know, there was a ton of people that didn't want the landfill right next to them. I would have been first in line too. And the applicant ended up buying, I don't know, 10 or 15 of the houses that were right next to it. But, you know, still the entire area is affected. But, you know, we need to have a landfill. And also you would consider, you know, there's a certain amount of resources that will support these data centers. Okay, so you can decline this one, and you know, if this is the right area, they'll go right across the county line. They're still going to use our power. They're still going to use our water, except for we won't get the tax revenue. The tax revenue from this project would allow us to close that landfill and ship all our trash out of here. You know, these are some of the things that we should consider. You know, and if all these data centers came to fruition, you know, some of the numbers I saw, it could be more than the entire budget of the county. You know, that would give the supervisors lots of flexibility. We could pay off, you know, the debt service that makes these water bills really high. We could eliminate property taxes for residential folks, you know, and still have tons of money left over. You know, if we should say either this or a farm field, I'd rather say a farm field. But if you say this or whatever next that they can use their property for by right, I would pick this. Get the tax money for it, and it's they've made extensive proffers here to try to plan this well, and that's the key, is the planning. And you come back to property rights, and I'm a real estate guy. I just know it's going to be the highest and best use. Right now, it's speaking to us right here, and we're going to get a big boon to the county. But if this is not it, it'll be the next best thing. And, then the neighbors may or may not like that. So, that would be what I would consider on this whole thing. And I see the downsides, and I have empathy for the people right next door. But, if this was next to my property, this or an unknown, I would take this, personally.
Thank you, sir. I think, Mr. Fox, I think you requested the floor.
Yeah, I would say in principle, I think King George ought to have a data center. It's a terrific opportunity in principle for the county for all the reasons we've talked about. Lower intensity use for a lot of economic gain, essentially. I'm just not convinced that that location is the best location for a data center, in part because we already have one approved, literally just almost next door, the Amazon Web Service site is already approved on both sides of Kings Highway. It would be, if it were built out, to my knowledge, probably the largest or approximately the largest in the United States, already approved. And now we're talking about putting another one potentially on top of it. There's also another project, as we all know, seeking approval out on 301. So we need a data center, I believe. I'm just not sure we need 2 or even 3 data centers in this county. And I would need to know more than I know now before I could feel comfortable approving it. I'd need to know really what the status was with Amazon. Are they really coming or not? Or, and if so, when might that be? What would be the issues surrounding whether or not they come? It's still a bit murky to me, and I'm on the planning commission. Likewise, air quality is an issue, a potential issue rather, from all the standby generation that's required. And if Amazon does come, then it's not just a matter of a baseline as it exists today plus this project. It's a baseline of what about Amazon plus this project today, right on that spot in the area where everybody's present and living there. I'm also been given to understand that Forty Group has not been approached by the developer for a heart-to-heart discussion on what this may or may not do to their business. If I'm wrong, perhaps you can correct me, but Forty Group, Mr. Viverberg, has indicated to me that he's not been contacted directly by the developers for a meaningful discussion, and he's obviously very concerned that his business will go down the tube. So that, to me, says if he's your next door neighbor and you want to be a good corporate citizen in the county, then it would certainly seem to me to behoove you to have a conversation with your next door neighbor who thinks his entire business is going to go down the tubes. So there are some unknowns here that personally I would need further clarity on before I could get comfortable supporting this project. Thank you.
Are there any others on the committee that wish to comment at this time?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and speak. This project has really consumed me a lot here, trying to decide which way to go with this. And I want to address a few pros and cons of this. As has been mentioned, the revenue is a big concern here for the county. We've got a lot of infrastructure projects that we need to take care of. The dump is about to close. That's going to be a big burden to us real soon when we lose the revenue and have to pay more revenue. However, we can't just chase the revenue. So we can't let that drive us be our sole driving factor. The other thing the other point that I've been wrestling with is this is in accordance with the comprehensive plan. This area is part of the, an area where we want to have industrial projects. So it's hard, as Mr. Palavoda said, there's other things that could go in here by right that could be even worse than a data center. Yes, we all know data centers have their issues. We shouldn't bias our opinion of what happened with data centers 20 years ago or 10 years ago. Technology is improving. I think this company has been very good and has been listening to a lot of the issues that the county has brought up, right? They're proffering a tremendous amount of things to the county, sites for a water treatment plant, money for emergency services, money for the Parks and Rec, additional fees and taxes, whatever the proper term is, that they're offering up over and above just the normal taxes that they're offering. So there's a tremendous amount of things, all the adjustments they've made to the berm site and trying to adjust this. The concern that I keep coming back to, however, is probably the one that hit me at the start. This project seems to be a project that is trying to put 5 pounds of stuff in a 4-pound bag. And they are trying to squeeze every square foot of data center into this site that they can. That's the impression that I get. If you look at the layouts, it is incredibly dense. There is not much land that is usable, that's not in an RPA, that's still left on these sites. Almost all of it that is not in an RPA, to my impression, from what I've seen, has looked like it's either going to be built on or paved over. So I've got a tremendous amount of concern about the water runoff in that creek. We've heard a lot of concerns from people about the water and the water quality that's going to come out of this site. To this date, I have not seen a lot of discussion about stormwater management. I see no stormwater ponds. I see no discussion about stormwater management. They say they're going to retain it and put it out at a slow rate. Well, where is that going to be retained? Are we going to be digging big cisterns, from an old school terminology? Are we going to be, having big water retention ponds that we bury under the buildings? Because I don't see a place to put stormwater management facilities here. I suggested a few months ago at a previous meeting that I could get behind a phased approach to this. Let's see with a smaller project how this works on this site. The project was proposed as a phased project. I tried to suggest that we get a phased approval and a phased approach. So that does not appear to have come to fruition. So I feel like we're being somewhat back to the wall to say this is all or nothing, which seems pretty similar to the discussions that were had with another data center in previous times here. So while I support a data center in this location, I'm having a very hard time supporting a data center of this size in this location in one fell swoop. We need to get a smaller facility in there. Let's see what the noise is. Let's see what the impact is to the neighbors. Let's see what the impact is to an existing company that's hiring 300 people and is a real asset in the type of facility we want in the area before we decide to completely shadow them with 100-foot plus buildings and noise and other issues. You could give them some more setback with a smaller project. So I've got real concerns with a project of this size. I'd support a data center, but not this current project.
Thank you, Mr. Lively. Please. Thank you. Are we done with our comments? Mr. Myers.
So, while I agree with Mr. Palavoda, most of this project is in an A1, is zoned A1 right now. It's not zoned industrial. And I agree that we need to start with a data center somewhere. We already have one approved. But a lot of the problem I have with this is that this project started out as a data center, which I thought was a huge project. And then they made some proffers, which were very good, I think, for the county. And with those proffers that they added, they then added a bunch more height to it and made more density, which I definitely don't feel good about. Again, with one approved, I don't know that it's the time to go to a second one now till we find out what's happening with that one. But you know, and then we have other ones on the list. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Right. I think everyone has made their comments, with the exception of me. I'm going to say mine for the last, to the end. But what I am going to do is I'm going to allow the applicant, I think, one more opportunity to address anything that you want to address, and then I'll make my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. We really have tried our best to reach out to the community. In fact, several years ago, I did meet with the owner of the Tulip facility. I met with one of my partners and a Julie Kayapa. And at that particular time, it was communicated very strongly that I really don't want to talk to you. Just go away. I don't want to have any other interference. It's my turn to talk.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir. No, sir.
So I didn't reach out to him. I got the message. The other thing, I hope everybody understands that this man sold his business last February for close to $50 million to Lenway. In fact, I got their annual report. So I hope they understand that he actually sold his business. He still runs it, but he was also located next to a large coal power plant for 25 years it operated. So we talked about how a data center could affect it. A coal plant, in my mind, would be pretty significant, with millions of tons of coal coming into virtually every day, coming in consistently to run it. So it didn't seem to affect the agricultural business, because I think he moved in after it was already operational. But this property has been planned as an industrial park for decades. It's always been like this. This is probably the least intensive type of use that you can possibly imagine for a property. If we had gone to just a 50-foot height and not asked for anything, these buildings would probably be more visible than what we mitigated in our plan, and try to make it visually more compatible with the visual impact when you come into King George County. In fact, you got a rezoning application in Stafford, just at the county line, where the 500 kV lines are, for a significantly large data center property on the south side of Route 3. So whether it happens here, it's going to happen down the street probably. So why not have the benefits come to King George residents than somebody else? If you're going to drive by and look at it, why don't you take a look at that? But I think that it's important that you understand we really tried hard. We want to participate and be good neighbors. We've always been in every jurisdiction we got to. We try to mitigate any noise issues, visual issues, and I think we've been in compliance with the comp plan. We're the only one that's been in compliance with the comp plan, period. Everything else, past and upcoming, has always asked for a comp plan amendment. We've always been in the comp plan, always, 20 years. So when you talk about we're too dense, we actually reduced the density. You know, we heard you. We actually reduced some of the buildings. We talked about visual impacts of people to the north. We're not disturbing any of that area over there. All that wooded area and the environmental corridor, we are staying away from it. I seriously doubt we even have to do wet mitigation, because we're avoiding it. So I'm just kind of hard to understand. I hear some of the comments, but I think it's important that you do consider this and you vote for it. Clark, I don't know if you have anything you might want to add. We're actually trying to solve some of the water and the sewer issues and participate in the interconnection between Oakland Park and Hop Yard to help the county mitigate any expense of that, doing a $2.5 million worth of public safety improvements at a very important intersection right there at Bloomsbury Road and Route 3. I don't know if anybody drives there, but it's a dangerous area. Industrial traffic. We're going to do that all up front. So Clark, maybe you want to add something.
Tonight may have begun a little bit disjointed because we had this smaller public hearing in the context of the larger application. Mr. Mitchell had a presentation for you of everything that we had changed since we met with you in May. Now, hopefully you've seen the proffers, the red line version, and have seen the changes that have been made. I did want to respond. There was a comment, I believe you, sir, about stormwater. And Mr. Grecki at the last meeting did get up and share with you exactly what was going to happen there and what the standards were, the state standards that we would have to meet, and how that would be handled on site. So we did try to address that issue. It doesn't mean that there should be large stormwater ponds on the site. But I think Mr. Mitchell has indicated pretty clearly that he's been working on this for going on 3 years, trying to make this work at this site. And there was a concern about the intensity of the development, and we tried to move some things around and reduce the density rather than go into a phasing, which would require, as I understood the suggestion last time, another approval. And much as we like to meet with you all, you know, that's rezonings these days are a pretty onerous process. So that pushed back on that. But we thank you for hearing us, and we trust that you're familiar with the changes that we made and did try to make in response to the questions that you raised at your last meeting. You know, always happy to try to be further responsive and address new concerns that you might have. But I think we've tried to deal with what you indicated and communicated you wanted us to address. So thank you all for your attention. Anything else?
Yes, you know, I'm glad you brought up the one issue because we did focus a lot on state-of-the-art stormwater management because we have provided or will be providing cisterns and collection of rainwater, using rainwater as a source for humidification, for irrigation, but also for flushing toilets to mitigate any excess groundwater. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but the nursery is the largest consumer of groundwater outside of the county itself. 140,000 gallons a day, I think it is, what it's permitted for. But we're so much lower than that. And we've created an underground water storage system, talked to manufacturers about how it's designed and collected and filters, especially for events that could happen. So it's a safety measure for nutrients or anything else that could get into the environment. So not only are we controlling the flow of stormwater from the property, but we're using it for purposes of humidification and potable water supply. It's a couple of million gallons of storage. It's all underground. You don't have these big ponds, you don't need it. And we really mitigated, especially by reducing the density of the project. You talk it's too dense. I looked at some of the other stuff, and we're about 35% open space, excluding all the things that you can't count as open space. If you count that, we're at 40% open space. That's pretty significant for an industrial piece of ground. It's not very dense. We're 0.52 FAR. So I hope you reconsider what I'm hearing, because I think it's a very positive project, architecturally, environmentally, and visually, and such a great partner we could be, as we've always been in other jurisdictions.
Thank you, sir. So, no, sir. Your public hearing is closed. This is a project that has gone on for quite some time. And for me, it boils down to two questions. Does it benefit the county economically? And does it hurt, or does it hurt the county environmentally. Right? Those questions to me have been answered. I'm an environmentalist to the extreme. I love to fish. I love clean water. I love clean air. I'm from Tennessee, right? Where the Great Smoky Mountains, where it's pure. Everybody likes to go there, right? So I want my county to be as crisp and clean as the Smoky Mountains. I also know that change is something that's going to happen. I have a father-in-law who's 97 years old, been in this county right here. Lives on Round Hill Road. Started out as a bike path, grew to a road, grew to a paved road. So if anybody has seen change, that man has seen ample amounts of change. We have an opportunity to control, to orchestrate, to have minimal impact, but yet grow at the same time. What I've heard, what I've seen on the screens, in my opinion, they've put forth a great effort. They have shown willingness to work with us. They've gone back, they've changed things, they've answered questions. It is our due diligence to protect the community, but it's also our due diligence to be fair to any applicant who comes forth to us. And so that's all I'm asking is you be fair, you be just in your decisions, consider all that has been presented before us. And make the best decision for the citizens of King George.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question?
So,
Will we
sir,
be allowed
sir,
to?
no, sir. I've given you your opportunity. I have the last word. So with that being said, I'm now open for, well, we will make a decision on this, and that will determine on whether we make decisions on the others. Is that correct, sir, or how does that go?
You need to make a recommendation on everything because ultimately the board of supervisors makes the final decision.
Correct.
So yours is a recommendation.
All right. So on this resolution of PC-05-25 application, I'm not going to read all that. Green Energy Ventures rezoning. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to forward application Z2022-00021 with proffers to the Board of Supervisors with an unfavorable recommendation for the following reasons. It does not align with the county's data center ordinance regarding building height. The proposed use is prejudicial to the character of the neighborhood, and the proposed use will be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties or the general neighborhood, and will impair the value of buildings or property in the surrounding area.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded.
Brett, was that you? Sorry, that was you. Okay.
Ms. Leduc, if we can have a roll call.
Yes, sir. So the motion was to forward with an unfavorable recommendation. Mr. DeCorda? Aye. Mr. Fox? Mr. Palavoda?
Nay.
Mr. Kendrick, record as absent. Mr. Maffett?
Aye.
Ms. Flatley? Mr. Myers?
Aye.
Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams?
Nay.
Motion carries 6-2.
Right. Next resolution, we still need to go through these correct. PC-06-25 application Z-2024-00194 Green Energy Ventures special exception. Floor is now open for discussion, if any.
Is there any more discussion? Make a motion to forward Resolution PC 0625, application Z 2024-00194, as amended to the Board of Supervisors with an unfavorable recommendation for the following reasons. It does not align with the county's data center ordinance regarding building height. The proposed use is prejudicial to the character of the neighborhood and will be detrimental to the use or development of adjacent properties in the general neighborhood. It will impair the value of buildings or property in the surrounding areas.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Okay. Mr. Palavoda,
Nay.
Mr. Maffett,
Aye.
Ms. Flatley, Mr. Myers, Mr. DeCordo, Mr. Fox, record Mr. Kendrick as absent, Mr. Nicely,
Aye.
and Mr. Williams.
Nay.
Motion carries 6-2.
We have to do them all.
Yep, you don't need to do anything with that one.
So resolution PC-07-25, Green Energy Ventures HCOD exception request.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, you all still had a substantial accord resolution before you. I think you should go ahead and act on that however you see fit.
It's not a separate resolution, but you should make it as a motion that you either do or do not find the project in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan.
Okay, so
If I can do this right, I make a motion to find that the special exception application is not in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan.
That's correct.
Second.
motion's been made and seconded. We can. Absolutely.
What do you say? I believe, I mean, we're voting no on all that stuff, but it is in accord with the comprehensive plan, I believe. Is that correct?
Say, I didn't hear you say.
I'm sorry. We voted no to not a favorable recommendation on the data center, but it is in accord with our comprehensive plan. Am I correct?
So if it was rezoning in accord with the comprehensive plan, I would agree with you, but it says the special exception application is in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan. So since we did not see that this special exception was favorable, then I don't think we can say that this accord is favorable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think it's, I don't see how this is not in accordance with the comprehensive plan. We expect this to be an industrial zoned area. We might not like this special exception, this particular project, but to say that something of this nature is not in accordance with the comprehensive plan.
Am I wrong in interpreting
have a
this
concern
as
with
that this special exception application, not a generic idea of a?
Yeah.
That area is zoned A1.
But it's also in the comprehensive plan
Correct.
as a area that is expected to be an industrial area of the county.
But if you look at the exact language, it does cover a lot of activities, including industrial. However, the overarching principle, the vision of the county's identity is its rural character. That
You know how this is going to
It's-
vote, so
yeah,
we just put it to the vote in a little bit
correct.
and move
Yeah.
on. I don't think we're going to change minds. I just have a hard time with saying this is not in accordance with the comprehensive plan.
if that property was paying industrial
It's
taxes for 40 years, I'd be all over that
Understood.
vested right.
very well. All right. Mr. Myers, you have the floor.
So I guess you get to the question is, would the zoning ordinance be considered part of the comp plan on it? Because it doesn't for building height, but besides that, I feel like I mean, it's in an area we said
Yes.
that
It's an
if
area
it's
we
going to
expect to
happen,
get.
this is what's going to, where
This
it's
is
going to
what-
go.
This is what, one of the areas in the county we want this to occur.
So I could be wrong in my interpretation of this, but if they said, is rezoning this property to industrial in the comprehensive, plan, I would agree. But we are we're talking about this particular special exception application. That's the words that are used. And so that's why I interpret this to not just be a generic rezoning idea.
I think if I can see council's clarification.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was talking to Kelly. What was the question?
Sure, no worries. Go ahead, Denise.
So if we were to phrase this in a way that said that rezoning this to industrial was within the comprehensive plan, I would agree. But this says that this special exception application, which is the one that we're talking about specifically tonight, is not in accord with the comprehensive plan. So I think there's some discussion up here about whether it's within the comprehensive plan because it's an industrial comprehensive plan area.
I think you can make an argument either way. I think reasonable minds can disagree on it, and I think you all can vote as you believe the proper vote is. In other words, I don't think there's one right answer. I think as you see it, you vote.
And I would suggest that it might be about the exact wording that you put in the resolution. If you want to say this specific special exception versus a rezoning.
Yeah, but if the only place you can do a data center is industrial, and this area is slated for industrial, then if you're going to do a data center, this is the
This
area
is the
where we
place in which we
plan
done.
for it.
All right.
Right.
All right. I'm gonna close discussion. Do we have a motion?
I believe we have a motion and it was seconded.
It's already, and motion has been made and seconded. Yes, sir. One last time.
I was going to say, if we add to that motion because of building height, I think it clears some, and I don't, even though it's a place that we said if we're going to do industrial, it's where we would do industrial. Nobody said that's a place where we're going to put very tall buildings.
Would you like me to withdraw my motion and you can rephrase it? I withdraw my motion.
Motion's been withdrawn.
Which one are we on?
It's easiest to look at.
This one here, right? This is the, oh, here it is, right here. See, 2024 194, right?
I'm not sure. That's what she just used when she made the motion.
This is substantial accord, right?
There's no number on it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't want to interrupt, but if it helps, I think the motion could be as simple as the special exception is, or it is not in substantial accordance with the comp plan, and you just vote as you see it, each individual member.
Yeah.
I move to find that the special exception application is not in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan.
I second.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded.
Ready? Okay. Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Palavoda?
Nay.
Mr. Fox? Mr. Kendrick, Mark absent. Mr. Maffett? Mr. Myers? Ms. Flatley? Mr. Nicely?
Nay.
And Mr. Williams?
Nay.
Motion carries 5-3. And then there's one more for the exception request. Don't need a separate one for the height.
All right, so that's just one more. The exception request.
PC 07, right.
All right, so the resolution PC-07-25 Green Energy Ventures, a COD exception request. All right, any discussion or motion? Floor is open.
I guess this one is somewhat confusing to me about how to deal with this internally and the logic of it, because I don't fundamentally have a concern with the HCOD and giving them more than one entrance as stated in our ordinance. But since we're not even approving the overall plan, this seems to be somewhat of a moot resolution. I know we need to go through it, but
Mr. Chairman, again, the Board of Supervisors, there'll be another public hearing and a vote. And so it's important that you all make your recommendation on each element as you believe appropriate.
Very well. So try not to look at it as a whole. You have to take each piece.
right.
So if you're in agreement with this piece,
Which fundamentally I
then
don't have a big concern
vote your
with what we're
conscience.
planning in
Correct.
terms of road entrances. It's the other aspects, as I mentioned in my comments.
Again, we take each piece.
Thank
All right. If I can have a motion.
I make a motion not to adopt resolution PC 0725 to allow the exception to the Highway Corridor Overlay District for more than one entrance into Route 3 for the following reasons. The project does not align with the county's ordinances regarding building height, and Plan Commission has already moved with an unfavorable recommendation for this special exception project.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded.
Okay. Mr. Maffett? Ms. Flatley? Mr. Myers?
Aye.
Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Fox? Mr. Palavoda?
Nay.
Mark, Mr. Kendrick absent. Mr. Nicely?
Nay.
And Mr. Williams?
Nay.
Motion failed. 4-, oh no, I'm sorry, motion tied, so it failed. Oh, wait a minute, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's 4-4, yep. Yep.
So I think in the event of a tie goes to the chairman, I'd say nay. All right. So
4-4.
Your motion failed. So do I get a motion?
If it's a tie vote, it goes with the no recommendation.
No recommendation.
Which is fine.
Wow.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I don't know what he's saying. You made a motion not to adopt, and it failed.
Correct.
No.
You actually.
No, if there's a motion and it's ties, the motion fails unless, and it would go without any recommendation unless someone wants to make the opposite motion and you have at least 5 votes to pass that in the affirmative. Otherwise, that one would fail as well, and there would be no recommendation.
I think we have one more. Is that correct?
Not for this particular project, no.
All right. Being that we all are over 40, our bladders are probably full, so I request that we take a break,
Make a motion, we take a break.
which has been
10
made.
minute?
Five.
5 minute.
5-minute break. Okay. Next is Resolution PC-11-25 Comprehensive Plan Amendment to add parcel 17-24,
Skipped one.
the Clydale Primary Settlement Area.
You skipped PC 10.
Did I?
Yep.
Or we'll come back to that one. We're gonna do Resolution PC-10-25 Application Z-2024-00224 Dahlgren Innovation Hub Rezoning Application. Is there anything to be presented or nothing? Okay.
The applicant's here.
Mr. Chairman, do you all need any more of a presentation or
I-
anything from the applicant? If you do, they're happy to do it. If you don't, I don't think they have to do it. It's up to y'all.
Okay. So if you would, the board is requesting that we go through an updated proffer, if you will, and that may help us out tremendously. Good evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Stewart. Thank you, board, chair. My name is Nick Over. I'm here on behalf of Dahlgren Innovation Hub. I want to first say thank you to everyone for the great comments and thoughts that you gave us at the last application. Our team took those to heart. I think we went back to the drawing board a little bit, made some tweaks, worked closely with Commissioner Nicely and others on our changes. I feel hopefully that the commission believes that we addressed the concerns that were raised. Some of those, just to summarize, we are requesting 70 feet max height, 65 feet will be our max height within 250 feet for the one building in the front. Water, we have clarified our language. We are not using county water for any cooling purposes. We are connected to the county water system. We will be proffering over the 200,000 gallon water tower to the county. We specified some timing around that. We also clarified some of the timing around our public trail. We put in a time frame of it's only be able to use from sun up to sundown, and that we will and we also added some language as to when we will complete that. So there's a little more specificity there. Air quality was a big one. We took that really to heart, and we are prepared to proffer Tier 4 compliant generators throughout the site, which is a huge upgrade over Tier 2. And if you need any details around that, I'm happy to provide that. Commissioner Williams mentioned clean water and soil. We have added additional language there stating, in addition to what we have to do with DEQ on the state level, we will also, prior to construction and site plan, identify locations and test the soils, and then we will commit to do that annually while we're under construction, and then for 3 years after construction as well. Finally, we added the detail around our public safety proffer, which is a $3 million proffer aimed towards a ladder truck. But if for some unforeseen reason that we're not able to get it on time, we will cover the cost to rent a ladder truck until such time as the ladder truck is received by the county at our full expense. So with that, we have proffered $500,000 for workforce development. I'm sorry, $1 million for parks. We're going to build our trail system, $3 million for public safety, and the water tower, which we value at about $5 million. So that is a quick summary of the updates to the proffer package. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. The floor is now open to the commission for any questions that you may have of the applicant directly.
What was the estimated annual revenue to the county that you had calculated?
Ross, do you want to answer that? My partner, Ross Lichtenhouse, handles all of our fiscal.
At full stabilization, after all the projects are built, we're estimating approximately $120 million in net fiscal impact across real estate and personal property tax revenue.
Okay, thank you.
That's over what time frame? You said $120 million. That's not per year,
That would be per year,
per
at
year.
full stabilization.
Okay.
How many, so
It's okay.
when would you, how long would you project it would take to get to the full?
Probably at full build out, depending on leasing and occupancy and the speed of power delivery, we're probably looking at close to 15 years to get to full stabilization. That $120 million is on average, and that's based on a refresh and recycle of equipment every 3 to 5 years, which is industry average. Some cases less than that, because most of the revenue that's derived from this project will be a tax on the data center equipment, which is a tangible personal property tax.
It's open.
Can you just explain what entities do not pay personal property tax that might be leasing your space?
Well, right now we don't have any leases in place for the project because it has not been approved. As far as I know, government entities that owned the equipment inside of the data center, that would not be taxable. But entities that lease that do not own the equipment, that would still be taxable. So as far as I understand, anything that would not be taxable that would impact that revenue would be entities that are tax exempt that own the equipment that's being operated inside of that. But in a traditional co-location facility, or if you've got entities that are leasing not only space, but the equipment as well, regardless of who they are, if they're paying to rent, that would be taxable.
Do you have any data that might support what percentage of your typical data center has taxable equipment versus not taxable equipment? I mean, could we lose 40% of that projected tax base?
Let me fix this. I'll have to sorry about that. I don't have studies in terms of what the average tax exempt occupancy is of data centers, but I would say it's relatively small. We are certainly not targeting that. The revenue off of the real estate alone, even in a worst case scenario, is going to drive fairly significant revenue. It's about a 20% to 80% real estate to personal property tax ratio. I would expect that if there was leasing at these facilities, that it would be relatively small. If you're talking about a breakdown between exempt and non-exempt entities, that is certainly not part of the business plan, Ms. Flatley, though.
So you said property accounts for 20% of that estimate.
Generally, it's about an 80 to 20% ratio. Just to put it in perspective, so from a construction cost perspective, right? So from a real estate standpoint, just to nerd out just a little bit, the real estate taxes that are derived from the property are based on an assessed value that's broken up between land and building. The land valuation will be based on entitlement as the highest and best use off of sales comparables. Aren't a lot of sales comparables for data center land in King George County, so the third-party appraiser that you have hired to assess your real estate will do a much broader search. The value of that land would be based on the power that's being able to be delivered, as well as the entitlement for the total square footage and some combination of the two. The other component of the real estate is based on the structures themselves. According to Virginia State Code, the initial assessment for the buildings will be based on the cost to construct. And right now, the cost for construction could range anywhere from $600 to $1,200 a square foot. And again, that's just for the improvements. It has nothing to do with the equipment inside of it. The equipment that's inside of the building is tax based on a personal property tax return. That's original cost less a depreciation schedule. You all are inside of the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance. And so that's based on a specific depreciation schedule and a specific tax rate, which is $1.25 per 100 after depreciation. The breakdown between that revenue, land and building, and then equipment, if you're talking about $600 to $1,200 per square foot for the improvements, as well as the land value, which you could value depending on the sales comps that they come across and be looked throughout kind of the Fredericksburg region, could be anywhere from $200,000 to $1 million per acre. So that plus the construction cost, and then you add the equipment inside of that. That equipment, again, anywhere from $2,500 all the way up to $5,000 per square foot, and that's recycled every 3 to 5 years. So that original cost basis, beginning in that depreciation schedule, will go back up to the top of that return about every 3 to 5 years. And when you look at the tax rate that you have right now, which I believe is around 68 cents, 69 cents per $100 for real estate, and then you look at the $1.25, based on the valuation, you kind of get to that 20 to 80% spread, if that answers your question, Mr. Moffitt.
So I'm just trying to get down to the ratio for Miss Nice or Miss Flatley, excuse me. Your wife's not here. If everything was publicly owned and exempt, you're saying it's still that estimate would be 20% of that estimate would still come to county, which would still be at its lowest point, an estimated 24 million.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
correct. But to put it more generally, anytime you own commercial real estate, if it is leased by a or if it's leased by an exempt entity, because the valuation of that structure, the way that it's assessed, even if they're leasing as an exempt entity, it's still taxable. The only component inside of that building that would be exempt is if an exempt entity owned the physical equipment. If it's an exempt entity that leases the equipment, that's not exempt.
So just to paraphrase down.
Sure.
Worst case scenario, estimated 24 million a year. Best case scenario, estimated 120 million a year. Is effectively what you're saying.
I have my spreadsheet pulled up, but generally, yes.
You,
I didn't even think I was going to get to talk tonight. This is exciting. Yeah, okay.
we saw some displays where the BOPL hits a cliff. Is there some special arrangement under the Fredericksburg Regional Allowance that
the business professional occupational license? So the analysis that we did, you may be referring to another project. The analysis that we did was purely based on what I call the known knowns. And this is where we get into the academic speak of economic impact analysis and fiscal impact analysis. Even inside of a fiscal impact analysis where we're looking at the local revenue versus the public service costs associated with this project, we only went with the known knowns. And the known knowns are what your assessor and your appraiser can dictate through state code, which you can effectively bank on. Things related to business professional occupational license, which is a gross receipt tax based on the earnings of the businesses that occupy and build and construct and things like that, that is very much a moving target. And to be perfectly transparent with you, you can put a number on that, but unless you know the businesses they're going to occupy and the revenue that they're generating, it's to some extent throwing darts, in my professional opinion. So the revenue that we're quoting to you is purely based on the known knowns, the real estate, and then the tangible personal property. There are costs associated with that, costs that are reported, and there is an assessment methodology that you can effectively bank on if you know those numbers. So those are the numbers that we've utilized for this project.
I have a question, but it's not tax related at all. I'm not sure who to direct this to.
That'll be
basically just
everybody else but me. Yeah.
Okay.
Was there any other questions for Ross? Because he's clearly smarter than I am when it comes to these.
Actually, I got one more.
Yeah.
Is there a different methodology than other data centers that you're using to calculate that revenue? Or is that a general data center methodology?
So the general methodology was standardized in Virginia a few years ago to create certainty and also to create this, I would say, war of incentives that was taking hold, frankly, up between Loudoun and Prince William County between tax structures. So the one thing that they could do to give Treasurers, Commissioner of Revenues, Board of Supervisors kind of a known quantity is to standardize the valuation practice. The valuation practice that we used is based specifically on the methodology. And this is a significant difference. We're not using comps because it's a very dangerous methodology for data centers. This is based on how data centers are assessed and taxed in the state of Virginia based on state code, ordinance, as well as training methodology provided to the assessors through the VAAO.
Thank you.
Okay. We understand that you're going to need a tremendous amount of baseload power to operate the facility, in excess of 1,000 megawatts, perhaps. Where are you in your discussions with Dominion Power on getting this supplied? And describe the process a little bit for us going forward as to how you get comfort on what the timing around that actually is, or can you, or to what degree can you get comfort on what the timing around that actually is?
Yes. So we are sitting within the Northern Neck co-op territory. So we have been working directly with Kyle Allwine and the Northern Neck team, who then is our conduit to Dominion, Dominion controls the power, the transmission, and then we will purchase our power through Northern Neck. They will maintain the substations. Because we're working through a co-op, we are required to pay for our own substations on our dime. We have received our preliminary report back from Dominion and Northern Neck that this project is feasible and they can provide us power over a period of time, and it doesn't obviously happen all at once, and it ramps up over time, and that typically happens in 300 megawatt chunks because that is the max size that Dominion will create substations for in Virginia. So that is our plan, to phase it in, basically 300 megawatts. So that is how it gets phased in.
So if I could ask, what do they need to see from you to make that commitment, apart from some type of
Yes,
financial?
so as soon as we receive approval, we will be putting down a substantial deposit on the first substation to order the transformers, and that is a very substantial number.
The availability of power is more what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Yes, we have received confirmation that our project is in a great position to receive power. The first.
Okay, I mean, just the general issue is whether or not we're gonna have any extended lag time, whether we're gonna be waiting around for this for years or.
Well, I will say it takes time for us to build the substations, to do the site work. And that's the lead, that's the long lead item, is building the substations and getting those completed. Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. That substation can be done in a year and a half.
But you have to get the transformers, since those are a long lead item. But that's changing and flexing, and there's ways to expedite that. So we're working direct with our partner at Northern Neck, and I'm happy to have a conversation with you and involve Kyle Allwine and have them update you further.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any questions from the board?
Mr. Over, do you mind, for my colleague who wasn't here
Sure.
last month, just going over the setbacks again?
Yes. So what we have done is we had prepared, and I can give you a copy of our presentation. Okay, great. We had prepared we hired a firm to do a realistic study, drop the buildings in at the proposed grade in relation to the grade on 301 to see what you would see. And we dropped that building in there at 70 feet. But what it really is, that's actually higher than what we have proffered to, which is 65 feet. 65 feet within 250 feet of the right of way. Anything beyond 250 feet can go to 70 feet, 5 feet more. So there's that one building that's closer to 301. We took 5 feet off of that one.
Does that includes things on top of the building, or that it would have that on
No,
top?
it does not. That is just to the height, and then typically, as was said earlier, you'll see 15 feet of equipment above that. So.
And your rendering was at 65, or was it 70?
70. But we're reflecting rooftop equipment an additional 15 feet in that rendering.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And those are typically set back from the building parapet. Oh. Oh, clicker. I love a clicker. Let's go to. So here we go. These were our 70-foot roof lines, and you can see we need an update. Is that me to do that, or? Okay, sorry. Okay, I lost my train here, sorry. So now see at the bottom here, all buildings are shown with a roof height of 70 above finished floor. Buildings are shown with a 5-foot parapet and a 15-foot mechanical screen wall. We wanted to be as realistic as possible with our images. This is the summer image as you're going north. The left kind of shows you where the buildings are in the background. It's a little crude, it's hard to do that, but on the right is what it would look like. Now we're looking at this view shed. These are the existing conditions on the right. This is the building that I referenced that we said will only be 65 feet. It's still shown here at 70. So you can take 5 feet off of that. This is our most visible view. This is the summer. Coming back down 301, we're pretty lucky here with the benefit of a very substantial berm that's already in place. And you will see the top of the building there, and there will be typically glass fenestration on a portion of the front of that. This is the summer. And so those were the view sheds.
And Oh, you're still putting the glass and everything on?
Correct.
You normally do. Okay. All right. All the power for this is coming off the transmission lines that are already crossing the property?
Yes, the 230 kV line.
Okay.
That's why we identified this location.
And just to confirm, because I think you might have misspoken earlier, you will not tap into the aquifer, but you will be on for the use of like the potable use and all that. You'll be on the county water line to supply that, correct?
County water for non-cooling uses.
Right.
Like, so you're typically talking about 300 to 350 gallons a day per building for that use.
All of your cooling is done, I guess, with surface water that's there? There's a
No, it's air-cooled systems.
Air-cooled.
So
All-
what you
all
do is you
air-cooled.
charge the building at the beginning, and we've agreed to just bring that water in. You do a one-time fill-up of the system. Each building is usually about 150,000 gallons of water at the beginning. We've proffered not to do that ourselves, and we'll pay to bring water in for that. It's a one-time. You actually fill it up once, you discharge it, and then you fill it up again, and then you're good to go. All right. I think questions have been asked.
You're meeting all the sound ordinances also?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
And we have a sound study. And we have, we've also proffered to an additional 100 feet all the way around the whole site for landscaping. I mean, to existing vegetation will stay in place. And only 300, we will only impact 300 of our acres on our site. All right. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Yeah. All right. So we've had questions. I'll open the floor for discussion among ourselves. If not discussion, I'll ask for a motion. Floor is open.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution PC 10-25 to forward application Z 2024-00224 with proffers to the Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Leduc, if we can have a roll call.
Okay, yes, sir. Mr. Fox? Mark, Mr. Kendrick, absent. Mr. Maffett?
Aye.
Mr. Myers? Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Palavoda?
Aye.
Ms. Flatley? And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Right.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution PC 11-25 to forward a favorable recommendation on the comprehensive plan amendment to the Board of Supervisors.
Second.
That motion's been made and seconded.
Okay, Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Fox? Mr. Palavoda?
Aye.
I'm sorry?
Aye. Sorry.
That's okay. Mark, Mr. Kendrick, absent. Mr. Maffett?
Aye.
Ms. Flatley? Mr. Myers? Sorry. Aye. Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-1.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution PC 12-25 to forward application Z 2024-00225 to the Board of Supervisors with a favorable recommendation.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Okay. Mr. Palavoda?
Aye.
Mark, Mr. Kendrick, absent. Mr. Maffett?
Aye.
Ms. Flatley? Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Fox? Mr. Myers? Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-1.
I'll make a motion to find that the special exception application is in substantial accord with the comprehensive plan.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Okay. Mr. Maffett?
Aye.
Ms. Flatley? Mr. Myers? Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
Mr. DeCorda? Sorry? Aye. Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Palavoto?
Aye.
Mark, Mr. Kendrick absent, and Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-1. Ready?
I'll make a motion to forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to approve the special exception for the increase in building height greater than 50 feet.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
Okay. Mr. DeCorda?
Aye.
Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Palavoto?
Aye.
Mr. Kendrick? Sorry, absent. I'm moving it. Sorry, y'all, I'm getting tired. Mr. Maffett? I know. Ms. Flatley? Mr. Myers? Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I'll motion to forward a favorable recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to approve the special exception for walls and fences to be allowed to be greater than 10 feet for screening.
Okay.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
All right. Mr. Myers? Mr. Palavoto?
Aye.
Mr. DeCorda? Mr. Maffett?
Aye.
Mark, Mr. Kendrick absent. Ms. Flatley? Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Nicely?
So this one, I'm going to go nay. I
Okay.
could not see a justification.
Okay. And Mr. Williams?
Aye.
Motion carries 6-2.
I'll make a motion to adopt Resolution PC 1325 to allow the exception to the Highway Corridor Overlay District for more than one entrance onto Route 301.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded.
All right. You guys are the dream team up there. All right. Sean, Brett, Mr. Kendrick, absent. Mr. Myers? Mr. Palavoto?
Aye.
Mr. Maffett?
Aye.
Mr. DeCorda?
Aye.
Ms. Flatley? Mr. Fox?
Aye.
Mr. Nicely?
Aye.
And Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-1. Is that all of them?
I think so, Kelly.
Yeah.
I thought you had.
Yeah.
I think I got them all.
All right.
And that is the agenda.
Next on the agenda is, I do believe, staff report.
It's just included at the end of the packet. I'll take any questions if you want to give me a call.
No official report. I think the next is our favorite part of the meeting, which is the adjournment.
Make a motion to adjourn to the next regular scheduled meeting, August 12th.
Second.
Second, motion's been made and seconded. Meeting adjourned.